Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us today for a webinar on strengthening IT to deliver next-gen customer experience presented by Dell Technologies. I'm Anil Chopra, VP Research and Consulting at Cyber Media Research and your host for today's session. Please note that for the duration of this webinar, all participants will be in listen-only mode. You can, however, keep sending us your questions through the chat window. We will take them up. One will take them up after the first. If you have questions, we can take them up after every session. Now, the CDEX forum is a three-part series that will focus on the CDE of organizations, which stands for Customer Experience, Digital Transformation, and Employee Experience. So we'll do CX today and discuss various critical issues that can help strengthen IT to deliver next-gen customer experience. Now, as we all know, that the current situation has caused a permanent shift in customer behavior. How have customer expectations and journey changed, and how should organizations gear up for it? How should IT and marketing work together to build innovative solutions that bring value to customers? What are some of the essential technologies that can be used as a differentiator to give organizations a competitive edge? We'll discuss all this today, and we'll start off first with a fireside chat on understanding and gearing up for the changing consumer behavior. For this, I'm pleased to introduce our distinguished guests for the fireside chat. We have Ankit Agarwal, who is the founder and CEO for Insurance Dekho, India's largest omni-channel insurtech startup. And we have Pradeep Gupta, Chairman and Managing Director at Cyber Media Group. Just to give a little bit, intro about them, Insurance Dekho has, presence in 1,000 cities covering more than 80% of the PIN codes in India and has tie-ups with more than 40 insurance companies. In financial year 2021, the company secured over 1 million policies and clocked a business of 1,200 crores in premium and expecting a growth of over 3x in the current FY 2022. Now, Ankit is a dynamic entrepreneur with a rich experience in financial services, mobility, and insurance sector. He joined Car Dekho as head of strategy and new initiatives, where he laid the foundation for Insurance Dekho and has delivered X to 10x growth. He's a chartered accountant, company secretary, and a postgraduate from the Department of IT of Financial Studies, University of Delhi. Pradeep Gupta, or PG as he is fondly called, is a first-gen entrepreneur who, along with his family members, promoted cyber media in 1982. He is the co-founder of Indian Angel Network and chair of the Alumni Trust, sponsors of Ivy Cap Ventures Trust Fund, an industry veteran of 40 years. PG has mentored over 150 startups, for which he was conferred the National Entrepreneurship Award as the best mentor by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India. Thank you, and over to you, PG and Ankit.
Thanks, Anil.
Thank you very much, Anil. It's really a pleasure for me to be in this fireside chat with Ankit. So, Ankit, welcome to this fireside chat. I'm really looking forward to having this great discussion with you.
Pleasure's all mine, Pradeep. I've grown up reading your magazines and buying them when I was a child so that I could go get those free CDs for video games and softwares. So one of my main reasons for signing up for this, apart from the discussion, was that I get to meet the guy who actually allowed me to collect so many CDs when I was a
kid. That's so wonderful. I really, that was the app store at that time, the CD, the magazine. Those were really some very, very exciting times.
Yeah.
Today we are talking about customer experience. And Ankit, I think the thing which has changed the maximum in the last 1.5 years is the way the customer is today interacting with products, services, how they are buying. I think the biggest change that has happened because of the pandemic is this customer experience. So we talk about increased digital adoption and so on. But, personally, I can say for myself that the way I used to buy things 2 years back and the way I'm buying it today is completely different. Would like to hear how you have seen the customer experience changing in the insurance business.
Sure. So, Pradeep, thank you so much for asking this question. This is one of my favorite questions, and I keep asking my team. Broadly, if you want to look at it, let's take a step back. in India, right, you will divide the entire consumer journey into two parts, especially for digital customers. One was pre-demonetization. Then there's a period from demonetization to COVID, and then there is post-COVID. I think COVID has changed the way people look at buying stuff, right? The adoption of online or online adoption has increased tremendously, right? To give you an example, right, UPI payments have increased 10x over the last 12 months. Now, even my maid, when she asks me for salary, she tells me, "Bhaiya, Google Pay kar do na." Right? So that is the way the world has changed, right? That is the way COVID has changed. But broadly, from an insurance customer perspective, I think awareness has increased significantly. Now the customer is more sure of what he's wanting to buy and why he's wanting to buy, right? He's more informed about insurance. Second, which I was talking to you yesterday also, the entire adoption towards digital, right? And by digital, it's not only searching online or getting to a point of purchase online, but it is also adapting to online modes of payment, right? Online modes of servicing. Let us be very honest, insurance is a contract between two parties where both the parties hope that that contract is never exercised, right? People make that payment hoping that they never have to exercise that contract, right? But the moment of truth in this contract is when you have claims or when you need any kind of servicing. Earlier, people were more comfortable with a touch and feel process there. Now people are more comfortable with the online process. To give you an example, the number of calls that we get on our on our call center, inbound call center, have gone down by 60% over the last 12 months. Now more and more people are using digital tools, right, for raising customer complaints or for taking help. Online purchases, right, unassisted online purchases where there is no call being done to consumers have gone up from 20% of our business to 75% of our business. So roughly 2/3 of our sales are now happening without any form of customer interaction, right? So that is the adoption which has happened. In terms of online payment, now 99.99% of our sales are.
Just one second. Sorry. So you said that a large percentage of transactions are now happening without any interaction. So, the earlier process was that there was an insurance agent, and that insurance agent would come to my house, show me various options and so on. All that thing is gone. That has changed.
Yeah, Pradeep, that's completely changed. What has also changed is now people don't expect to be called, right? So if you go to insurancedekho.com, right, people don't expect to be called by an Insurance Dekho telecaller also, right? They are okay in completing the entire purchase on their own without any help, right? It's DIY has actually evolved over the last 12 months, right? COVID forced people to evolve, and I think this is a change which is going to stay. This is a change which is going to stay. More and more platforms in the country are now going to become DIY, do it yourself, or completely self-assisted platforms.
Oh, okay. All right. And any changes have happened because of the mobility patterns? Because, in the earlier time, we were moving around much more, and therefore the entire transaction was very different. Now, if the mobility pattern is different, is there a change coming because of that?
So I don't think, Pradeep, that has impacted our business in any way, right? What happened during the two lockdowns, right? During the first lockdown for 3 months when the country was under lock and key and vehicular movement was restricted, obviously auto insurance took a hit. But the moment country started opening up, the volumes picked up, right? Because by law, auto insurance is a mandatory product, right? But what has actually happened, Pradeep, is people have become more aware of the risks of not having a insurance, right? Of not having a health insurance or life insurance, how it can completely wipe out your savings, right? So more and more people have now moved towards buying insurance as a savings product, right? As a financial saving product or a protection product, which was not happening earlier. Earlier, people looked at it more from a tax saving purpose.
But does that also mean that the nature of offerings, are you seeing more bundling? Are you seeing, some dynamic products? Because technology can allow you to today, as the thing, the car insurance can be depending upon whether you are an urban driver, rural driver, or how many kilometers you've driven today, and, can it be a dynamic product? All those things Are you seeing a change happening in terms of the products as well?
So again, there are two different ways to look at it. One, from a pure play motor product, yes, insurance companies have come up with new kind of products like pay as you go. There is no point paying a larger premium if you're not driving your car, right? So it's more like a switch on, switch off. You pay for the number of kilometers you drive, right? In India, it's started taking off. It's a very common insurance product in the West. In India, it was launched last year, and we've seen some decent traction happening on that front, right? That's more from a product perspective. Second is from a bundling perspective, absolutely, right? Now people are looking for smaller term protection products, right? So for example, and IID and our finance ministry along with health ministry have taken a lot of steps in this direction, right? They launched a product called COVID product, right, which was called Corona Suraksha, Corona Kavach, right? These products were a 299 or a 500 rupees product, which protected people from a specific instance, and this could be sold as attached products. So if you're buying a motor insurance, it said, why don't you get yourself COVID protected? Right, a 299 product, and people used to buy it. So these kind of products have seen a lot of uptick, right? And we are seeing a lot of demand for these kind of products. And instantaneous cover is what we call them in our parlance for industry. Now more and more people are asking for instantaneous covers or covers which cover a specific instance.
But tell me, how many of these changes you think are going to be permanent? Are we going to revert to certain things once, the pandemic sort of opens up and stuff like that? I understand that things like, today it might be cashless, it may remain as less cash. So some of those things are going to be permanent. But what do you think will revert back to the old days, or that is gone?
So I think there is going to be a new normal, Pradeep, right?
Right.
I'm a regular at events. I wouldn't have thought 18 months ago that I would be doing a virtual event like this, right? So I think there are a lot of things which are here to stay, right? Things may get adjusted a little bit, right? So if today 4 out of 10 people are buying health insurance, it may go down to 3 out of 10. But will it go back to the old numbers? No, it will not, right? That is one. Second, people have got very used to the comfort of doing things online, right? So earlier, the phenomenon was people used to search online, buy offline. Now people are searching online and buying also online, right? This phenomenon is going to stay. This phenomenon is going to stay because now people have got accustomed to the ease, and that is going to be very difficult to replace.
Right. So in terms of marketing, what are some of the changes that you've had to put in the organization? For example, I'm sure there is more of digital marketing now. Okay. The way you communicate, the way you acquire customers, all of that would have changed. So what are some of the changes that you're seeing there?
Sure. So Pradeep, I think marketing has become more for the moment marketing, right? So that is one, right? More and more brands have started using moments to market themselves. These are short marketing campaigns, or you can call them guerrilla marketing campaigns. Something has happened. They would latch onto that event, market that event heavily, see how that event can be used to leverage the brand, right? And these campaigns would last for 1 or 2 days, right? Second, because of the entire consumption of content moving from TV to mobile, right, or tablet, that acceleration has been very rapid. A lot more focus is being done on digital brands, right? So at Insurance Decco, I ran a TV campaign in January, right? I called off the TV campaign after 4 weeks because I was not getting the same bang for the buck on TV as I was getting online, right? So for me, Hotstar or Sony Live app or YouTube were giving me far more returns than I was getting on a television campaign, right? So, and I see this trend accelerating. More and more brands will now be created online, right? And that is why you see there's so much investment flowing into DTC brands, right? Now, Theresio is a new way of investing, right? A lot of people are replicating what Theresio has done in US. Now they're trying to replicate it in India. So that entire digital brand creation is going to happen.
But you are also now sitting on a lot of customer data. Because, if everything is happening online, so do you do, modeling on that? Are you doing predictive analysis? What are you using that data in terms of, better customer experience?
So Pradeep, the kind of consumer data that now marketer can get is not even funny. It's really scary, right? For example, if you're on Facebook, right, I can actually know which were the websites you visited, which were the typical searches you did, at what time you did that search, from which device you did that search, right, to the T. One that is on the scarier part because your privacy goes for a toss. But as a brand, right, for me, it helps me target the person to the T. So if I want to target a car insurance buyer with a Honda City, right, in Jaipur and of a specific location, I'm able to market to that level of precision now, right? So I'm getting more bang for the buck now.
Tell me, in terms of, what it also means is that you have to reorient your people, you have to reorient the organization. So what sort of structural changes has that brought about? What has that meant in terms of, the employees, training them, retraining them, OKR, whatever? What are some of the changes that have happened because of all these things?
So Pradeep, the basic theme of running an organization is collaboration, right? I think first 6 months, everybody took time to understand how to collaborate in the new world, right? How to collaborate on Zoom, because people missed their chai sessions, people missed their lunch sessions, they missed their team parties, etc. So getting people to collaborate in a remote environment was very, very difficult. But I think now people have got used to that way of working. And for me personally, I think the hybrid way of working is going to stay, where people come to office 2 or 3 days a week and remaining days they work from home, or they just come to office if there's an important meeting, right? Or they come to office for a team get together or something, right? People have now started to becoming more accountable, right? Because now they know that if this work has to be done, it has to be done in this much time, right? That earlier I think was I would not say missing, but it has now become more razor sharp, right? Second, people have within India now you've created an offshoring industry, right? Earlier, if I wanted to hire an engineer from Jaipur, right, getting him to Gurgaon may have been a challenge, or getting him to Bangalore may have been a challenge. Now I can hire engineers across the country. I may, sitting in Gurgaon, I may be able to hire somebody sitting in Nagaland or even Kanyakumari, and that person is more than willing to work with me. So the remote way of working, specifically for specialized skills, is here to stay, and people have learned how to become more accountable and collaborate better.
So that's interesting. Essentially what you're saying is that the trust levels have sort of gone up.
Yeah.
In the entire sort of way in which to handle your people. Yeah. But has team spirit, morale, all of that has it had a hitch? Because any new person who would come into the organization would first sort of meet with all the colleagues and interact and so on, and sort of learn what is the organization culture and so on. So how has that changed?
So in one line, Pradeep, I think necessity is the mother of all inventions, right? The last 15, 16 months have taught us how to innovate and how to do these things better. We've now created a strong buddy system, right? Where you assign a buddy to a new joinee, right? The buddy's job is to make sure that they interact with folks, they make sure the individual is settled, right? Some things you can't replace, right? That's why I said that the hybrid way of working is going to be here. But in the given situation, I think we've done three things. One, we've started doing a lot of extracurricular activities, right? Doing morning sessions with yoga practitioners, right? We've started doing Friday drink sessions, right? Where people are, encouraged to invite their family members. In fact, I've met more family members of my team over the last 12 to 15 months than I had met them in the 4 years that I was running this organization, right?
That's interesting.
There have been times when I was having a investor call and my 6-month-old baby walked into my room and I had to tell the investor, I'm sorry, my baby just walked into the room, right? Third, I think what we've started doing is we've started doing quarterly offsites wherever, whenever, the COVID situation permits us, right? So the entire organization as a whole gets together for 3 days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we brainstorm on what is working, what is not working. These are the things which have kept us going.
Okay. So, I'll just name a few technologies and you can just sort of say that, yes, are you looking at adopting them or not? For example, telecommuting tech.
We are looking at adopting that.
We're looking at that. Virtual reality for having interaction amongst team members and so on.
That's already implemented 6 months ago.
That's already implemented. Wonderful. Chatbots.
Yeah, that's already there. We are a tech company, Pradeep. We were the first to go.
Wonderful. What about, automation in terms of, the AI, ML part of it, or some sort of, which I guess you said that when you're using...
I think that's already done. With chatbot, we've already done that.
Productivity measurement, OKR tools, and so on.
That our CHRO Manish Wadhwa was off the block to implement Q1 last year.
Okay. So huge number of new technology seems to be coming in. And I guess we would be moving towards robotics and more of those kind of technologies in the next 4 or 5 years, I guess. But, my last question, and then after that, I'll just request Anil if there are questions from the audience. What about the security layer? Because, this distributed work obviously brings in many more touch points and many more vulnerabilities in the system. So what are you doing as far as security is concerned?
Pradeep, the first thing we did is, because we are a fintech company, right? So this has been our core area of focus, not from COVID time, but from 3 or 4 years earlier, right? So we have strong security measures in place, right? One, most of the customer sensitive data is not accessible to anybody excepting the CIO of the company, right? The entire system of the organization runs behind a VPN. So we have clear trails, right? Also, all kinds of USB ports, etc., are disabled. Plus, there are 2 or 3 more security softwares which our CIO is using. To be honest, in front of this August audience, I would not be aware of the names. So forgive my ignorance on this part.
That's perfectly all right. But let's say what percentage of budget today would be going into in terms of collaboration software? How much percentage would probably be going in security and so on?
From a broad number perspective, we've tripled our spend on these kind of softwares, right? We've tripled our spend on security, communication, right, and team engagement softwares. If I was spending ₹1 earlier, now I'm spending ₹3.
Wonderful. I think that's a great answer. Anil, we are coming to the close of our time. So are there any specific questions from the audience that you would like us to talk about?
There's specific questions I'm not seeing, PG, but I'm seeing just comments and all where people are saying that in Bangalore advisory for ORR-based companies that, they'll work from home till December 22. So basically, they're all agreeing that, work from home is the way to continue business. So no specific question, but yeah, I would again urge the audience, if you have any questions to ask either Ankit or PG, please post them in the chat window. They can probably take 1 or 2 questions before we move to the next session.
Okay. So my last question to you, Ankit, what do you see will be your business 10 years from today? What are some of the changes that you would see in it 10 years from now?
So, PG, one, we are a regulated business, right? So a lot will also depend on the kind of regulatory changes which happen in this sector, right? Because insurance is one of the most regulated sectors in the country, right? So a lot of changes will be driven from a regulatory perspective. But what I think is going to happen more in the distribution side, given the rich data layer set which we all are creating, right? Insurance plans will keep becoming more and more personalized. That is one. Second, a lot of underwriting will start happening at the distributor end, right? Because I know PG is coming from this city at this point of time, and past track record shows that a customer of similar profile is a good customer, right? So I'll be able to do more underwriting at my end, right? Third, from a customer excellence perspective, I think this entire industry will become more customer focused. Let us be very honest. We have 162 people on the call right now listening to us. If I ask them what has been your experience with your insurance claim, I can bet at least 60% would say non-satisfactory, right? That I think is going to change, and more companies are going to become NPS focused. For me, NPS is the single most important number which I check every day. Targets can be missed, but NPS scores cannot be missed, right? So I think that is the transition which is going to happen.
Wonderful. I think that's been a great discussion, a great sharing of various. Thanks, Ankit.
This is mine, PG. Thank you so much for letting me live my fanboy moment. Trust me. Thank you so much for letting me live my fanboy moment.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
So there is a question from the audience, and the question is, what do you do to ensure that the customer experience is always a priority?
So I've learned it from Jeff Bezos. I make sure that I spend 1 hour every day on reading every single email that I get on my customer service desk, right? So there are certain keywords which my engineering team has keyed up. So any email with those keywords flows into my inbox too. And every day in the night, I've blocked 1 hour where I go through each and every email, and I send questions to people and then mark a follow-up on my calendar, right? If the CEO of the company has put customer excellence as his priority, and he celebrates every single good review, and he forces people to go back and check in case of a negative review, it flows down the chain, right? So customer excellence is my core KPI, and that is my focus area.
Great. Well said. So with that, sorry, there's another question on it?
Yeah, there was a quick question. Somebody asked, what is your cloud strategy? So, Ankit, I'm not sure whether that would be relevant for you.
So I can quickly try to take a stab at it. We are moving all kinds of storage, right? So we moved away from physical storage a long time ago. We are completely on AWS for last 4 years. We've recently moved our entire call center also to a cloud-based solution. So I think more and more companies are going to move towards a cloud-based strategy, and we are focused on that too. Hope this helps.
Absolutely. I think that's something that is happening across organizations everywhere. That is something that's a no-brainer now,
Yeah.
Increasingly, there'll be more and more cloud use.
Yeah.
So with that, Ankit, thank you very much, for keeping a very, very lively discussion and sharing the transformation that is taking place in terms of the customer expectation. And I'm sure that our audience would have learned a lot from this interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you, Anil. Take care. Take care, guys. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Ankit and PG, for that insightful discussion. As PG rightly said, I'm sure it gave the audience some food for thought around their CX plans. I was reading through the chat, although I got a few questions, but I think most of the people have really appreciated the discussion. They've really loved the session. So that's some really good feedback for you on the spot. So thank you so much for that. It is now time for the next session, which focuses on around aligning tech to really changing consumer behavior to sustain business growth. And for this, I'm pleased to introduce the speaker, Sudarshan R, who is the head of marketing operations and channel marketing international region at Dell Technologies. Sudarshan, who's fondly called Sudi, has been with Dell for over 18 years across various roles, both in marketing and sales. And he currently leads a team of senior marketers across the globe, supporting strategy, planning, day-to-day ops, run the business, and transform the business initiatives, covering all product solutions and across all routes to market. Sudi is a chemical engineer and has a management degree specializing in marketing and finance, and he speaks multiple international languages. But before I bring him on, I think it's time to really run a quick poll. So can we please have the poll question? before we have Sudhi presenting. So here we go. So the question is, what is your biggest challenge in delivering enhanced customer experience? Is it getting single view of the customer, or gathering data and insights about customers? Too many tech silos, getting clear KPIs to measure customer experience, or building a strategy for IT to implement CX technologies? You can choose more than one option. Once it's done, please do show I'll request the admins to show the results. Great. Thanks a lot. So I think the topmost challenge is gathering data and insights about the customers. Thanks. With that, I will now hand it over to Sudhi. So Sudhi, over to you.
Thank you, Anil, and good afternoon, everyone on the call. Thank you for the opportunity and the time. So I'm just going to bring up my slides and let me know if you can see it. Okay. Let me know if you can see my slides. So I know we are probably running behind time, so I'm going to be a little quick here. And I promise you a few things right before I get into the presentation. The first is I'm not going to bore you, right? So you're going to see all of my slides have less content but more pictures, so you can appreciate the pictures as well. The second is I'm not going to speak too much of technology. I'm not going to bore you with a tech pitch, but I'm going to really talk about our experience. And as a marketeer in Dell, obviously we are also going through transformation, and I really want to narrate our story and what we've learned. But I'm also going to bring in wider context, to some of the transformation that's happening outside in our day-to-day lives. So you have a larger context and the perspectives before we get into our panel discussion. And the third is, again, right, like I'm going to give more time back for the panel discussion so we can answer some of your questions, right, that you may have. So first of all, like I said, thank you for the opportunity. And I hope everyone, given the times we are in and the challenges we have had, is smiling like him and the person on the picture. So the question that I asked myself, right, as to why should we care? Why should you care, right, about this discussion? Obviously we're all going through it. We're all learning from it. And the earlier discussion clearly outlined how a very regulated industry like insurance is really transforming itself. But the question is, why should we care, right? Like what's the real deal? So if you sort of look at some of the facts, right, and insights from our day-to-day lives, right? Let's start with work. And I'm sure all of us are living this, right? You would relate to everything that I'm going to say here. Unemployment is on the rise, right? Unfortunately, remote working is rampant. And, we just spoke about it, and some of the chat messages indicated how this is going to be a reality that we've got to live with. On-the-go consumption is declining. And as a marketeer, and I'm sure some of you marketeers on the call would really agree that on-the-go consumption decline is a big problem, because all along, we've been looking at how do we make our content relevant for on-the-go consumption, which now is reducing. So we'll have to figure out other ways of marketing to the moments. If you just look at the facts, there's 20x increase in daily Zoom participants, right? So that's massive, right? In terms of how much of collaboration, conversation that's happening every day through these tech platforms. Then if you come home, right, nesting at home, online search, right? We just heard Ankit talk about how digital commerce and how online is picking up for most of his sales. Home is the new coffee shop. It's the new entertainment center. It's the new restaurant. So it really has changed the perspective of how we live and, how we do things from home. If you go a little outside and broader and look at shopping and consumption, e-commerce obviously is picked up, right? So we no longer are, we don't shop online and buy offline. We actually do everything online. The trusted brand preference is significantly higher now. We are reluctant to switch. We are almost comfortable with what we buy. Larger basket, but reduced frequency. Very, very low discretionary spend. I think we've all become more mindful, and we've all become less, more risk averse. Shifting to stores closer to home. If you really have to go buy physically, we almost go to a neighborhood store, right, and pick it up, which all is good, right? In a way, it promotes local produce, but it's also a change in the consumption pattern. And then sustainability has become a big part of how we look at stuff, right? Whether it's For example, looking at brands and vendors that you want to work with, it's even the products and what we buy. We have a good, we sort of look at the longer term perspective of it. You look at play and entertainment, right? Digital entertainment, streaming, right? I'm sure all of you on this call, most of you on this call have some sort of a streaming, subscription. More play time, right? Reduced travel would mean that we've got more time at hand. Hopefully, we're using that to play and entertain. You look at the facts of how much time it took Disney to achieve the same level of Netflix. These are significant, exponential changes, right? And then look at learning and schooling, right? And I'm sure most of you who have kids, or even us, right? For example, how much of money we spend today on learning adjacencies, right? I heard the other day on another call where, the demand for additional certifications and courses, online courses, significantly increased, right? Over the last 14, 15 months. Remote schooling and learning has become the norm for most of our kids and some of our family members. And I didn't realize, right? 35% of Netflix users actually use it for educational content. I never did that, right? And this is new to me, and that's interesting, right? And puts a lot of perspective on streaming and what that streaming could be used for. If you start looking at businesses, right, and look at what businesses are going through and how that sort of intersects with customer experience, I think digital transformation, I'm sure all of us agree, and we just heard it from Ankit. There are fintech companies, born in cloud companies that are actually transforming the way business happen. And that's forcing all of the older and the larger companies to think about digital transformation differently. Dell did a survey pretty recently, and we heard that 75% of the leaders, the CEOs, view that this is a time to accelerate. The COVID time is the time to accelerate and change the nature of digital transformation. So what was digital transformation a year and a half ago is no longer what it is today, right? So the pace as well as the nature is changing. When we started remote working, obviously Dell embraced remote working many, many years ago. We almost made it a part of our strategy starting 2010. So for us, remote working was not new, but for most of the team members who were new to remote working, there was a lot of questions when we started, right, 14 months ago. We always thought that it's something that may not be productive. We may not be able to drive the levels of engagement we want. Innovation might be, inhibited. While we all understood cost economics will help, right? Obviously, people don't have to travel. They're probably going to spend less. You don't have to pay for electricity and, utility costs. So cost economics was understood. But what was least understood was innovation and engagement, right? And you look at the facts, clearly in the last 14 months, and particularly in the last 6 to 8 months, remote working has actually fueled innovation, right? You look at some of the stories and narratives that are coming out in terms of how companies and employees are figuring out innovative ways of engaging, innovative ways of solving problems, how the tools and infrastructure, right, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Teams, whether it's all the platforms that we have, collaborative platforms that we have, how they're supporting innovation. I think there is tremendous change, right? And 73% of the respondents that we spoke with agreed that this remote working has sparked innovation, which I think is fantastic, right? And then the engagement part, right? That was the area that was a big question mark on could we get people to engage as much as they do in office? And the answer is yes, right? In fact, it's sustainable. It's something that can be improved over a period of time. And what this all tells me is, to going back to the last conversation, that work from home, whether it's a policy-driven mandate, whether it's a choice that companies have made, is something that can be sustained. And it can actually be nurtured and actually be made to work more effectively for all of the companies, right? And I think that's the biggest learning that most businesses have had in the last 6 to 8 months. If you talk to the employees, and I know this session, I think the third part of the series is focused on employees, but you can't really talk about customer experience without talking about employee experience. So clearly, technology is fueling employee experience, right? And technology is at the heart of transforming our employee experience. And really what employees are telling us, and again from a survey that was done across our customer organizations, is that 61% of the workers or employees say that technology glitches actually demotivates them, right? And it's a big part of their experience and their retention in companies. So technology is no longer about what you offer when they come on board. It's actually part of your organizational strategy to sell the experience to a new hire and hopefully retain them for a longer period of time. Employee productivity is as important as companies' digital transformation, right? And that's another change that has happened in the last 18 months, where we've seen companies now embrace productivity as a key IT business outcome as much as customer experience and digital transformation. And then finally, I think one of the feedback and points that I saw in the survey and the question that was the poll that was done was breaking the silos, right? And I think what really has happened over the last 8 months in particular is we've learned through remote working to break silos, which I think was a big challenge, right, initially when we started. And I think now more and more respondents are indicating that collaboration has either increased or remained the same over a period of time, right, which really is now fueling that, that whole remote working experience and outcomes. Now, one of the questions that PG asked at the start of the call to Ankit was, how does this mean? What does this mean from a threat perspective, right? Because all of the good things also come with, potential areas and opportunities, right? We've seen significant data loss and theft. We keep hearing it every day. We keep seeing it in news. It's much more challenging now with the remote workforce, right? Because you now have to worry about not just your organizational network, but also the network through which the employee connects. Awareness of employees is not significant. I don't think people understand how their behaviors can compromise overall threat landscape of the companies. And I think that's going to become more and more critical. And then finally, there's exponential risks in terms of ransomware attacks, which I think puts a lot of pressure on how we prioritize security as part of our overall IT strategy, right? Which obviously was always on the, the peripheries of what we did, was always important for some verticals like banking, insurance, for example, where we dealt with significantly private and personal data. But now it's becoming more mainstream and more important than ever before. So what do all these mean, right, for all of us, right? The first is tech agility fuels change, right? And I think nobody would disagree on this call that having a flexible, responsive, and integrated IT strategy is critical to driving change, right? I don't think we could have transformed or we could do, all the things that we're doing today without a strategy around IT that allows us to be able to scale and, and develop. The second is endpoint security is as critical as organizational firewalls. And I think more and more employees do remote working, I think this is getting even more prominent, right? And there is a significant awareness overall. So how do you assess that? How do you prioritize and how do you evaluate the risks? Is going to be extremely critical. Third is, and again, something that was always sort of part of the, thinking, but now it's becoming more prominent as employees are more and more remote. Their experience drives customer experience. So how do you build the tech linkage to the employee experience and how you use employee experience to drive customer experiences? That linkage, that trinity is becoming extremely critical. And then finally, change is universal, right? Transformation is common. I mean, all the things that you go through or you're going through, your organization is seeing, we are seeing it as well, right? As Dell. We are going through the same challenges, the same opportunities. We have you as our customers, right? To really talk to. And, we're sort of enhancing our capability to be able to, do that well. Talk to us, right? I think, we can learn a lot, right, from each other. And that's something that we should all sort of, increasingly look at to see how we share and learn from all of our narratives and, and stories and wins. Finally, just as, our marketing leader, what are we doing, right? And I just want to leave this for all the marketing audience on the call. What we have done, right? And these are the 4 things that we have done in the last 18 months extremely well. The first is we have invested and prioritized a reliable customer data platform for us in the company. We always had a customer data platform, but we've really made it a lot more robust, a lot more scaled, built on Dell for Dell, right? And we've integrated a lot of the tech silos that we had within the marketing organization, right? A lot of MarTech tools weren't talking to each other, and we're trying to bring that single pane of glass to our customer journey and our customer experience. So we've really made tech as a competitive edge within marketing, right, in the last 18 months. The second is, and this is something that's very, very important, right? Privacy is at our heart, and it's our core purpose, right? So it's not an option. It's not something that comes after we've built something. It's our technology is built with privacy in mind. And that's important because I think as customers look at our, like you look at us and, your customers look at you and your organization, I think privacy will play a more important role in terms of how they determine their vendor of choice and whether they want to engage with you as a brand. And putting that as a priority and a core purpose, I think makes it a lot more, reliable and a trusted partner, right, for our customers. Third is, how do we use all of this technology, all of the privacy, wraparounds that we have around that, our customer data? how do we market to the moments, right? And we are really building out those hyper-personalized experiences for each of our customer journeys, right, that we see. And how do we make our content more relevant, right? So it's no longer about selling our brand and our products and solutions to you. It's really about how do we make in your journey, how do we make our point of view valuable to you, right? So no matter what brand you choose at the end of the day, no matter which vendor you choose to work with, you have the perspective to make a call, right? And that's really what we're focused on. It's not so much about pushing our brand and selling our solutions. And then finally, the role of marketeer is changing, right? We're leveraging more and more AI, ML, decision science. We've got a decision science teams within marketing. We understanding our customers a lot more holistic than ever before. The role of a marketeer is now to upskill and upscale, right? It's no longer about, it's about the art of marketing, right? And just looking at how do we, engage with media and what sort of creative and advertising that we do. It's really about the science and the art of marketing and how do we understand the science to influence the art, right? And that's what we're really focused on in terms of people upskilling and upscaling them, for the future. Thank you again. That's pretty much what I had, just to give you a gist of, what's happening in the industry, what are we seeing, what's our story, what are we focused on, and hopefully that helped you, right, as you think about your organization and your journey and where you're trying to get to. Thank you so much. Back to you, Anil.
Anil, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, Sudhi, for the great insights. I think some good feedback has come from all the attendees also. So I think great session. We've discussed plenty of insights, today around changing consumer behavior and the role of marketing. But now I think it's time to really understand how do we really adapt to changing consumer behavior in a hybrid world where the customer is both online and offline, and what is the role of tech in all that. And you're going to have a panel discussion around that. But before we start the panel discussion, I invite all the panelists, let's do a quick poll. So can we please have the poll question? What are your top focus areas for customer experience? Use of chatbots and virtual agents, going omni-channel, social media monitoring, data integration tools to improve customer support, applications for customer behavior analytics, user experience tools, secure and high performance endpoints for employees. And as before, you can choose multiple options. And once the poll is over, can we please just see the results? Great. So data integration tools to improve customer support seems to be the biggest, for future that in the plans. So that's really good insight, followed by secure and high performance endpoints for employees. So great. So that gives us some really good food for thought around, what people are really looking for in the future for customer experience. Thank you so much for that. It is now time for the panel, and I'm going to quickly introduce you to my co-panelists today. So can I please request the admin to show all the panelists in the center, please? Thank you so much. Welcome all the panelists. I'd like to introduce Mukesh Sharma, CTO for Paisabazaar. Hi, Mukesh. You can just wave at them so that they know. Mukesh leads technology vertical for Paisabazaar, and which is India's largest digital marketplace for lending products and credit score platform. He's got an overall experience of more than 14 years and has been at the realm of many industry first innovations at Paisabazaar, including India's first chance of approval model and a digital stack that makes lending easy, convenient, and transparent for consumers. Welcome, Mukesh.
Thank you very much, Anil. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, we have Prasad Udevar, who's the GM IT at Parley Agro. Prasad is a qualified and technically sound professional with over 22 years of experience in various fields of IT, handling and managing complex systems apart from managing ERP system landscape of SAP R3. He has designed a level 3 data center for primary operations and also successfully implemented DR setup with VMware SRM. He specializes in designing and implementing and managing all kinds of IT systems, server storage, security policies, applications for various business requirements. Welcome, Prasad. And last we have, no, not last, I'm sorry. We have Sudhi and Gitanjali also. So we have Gitanjali Singh, who's the VP Marketing at Select City Walk. And she has got demonstrated history of working in the retail industry. She is also skilled in marketing management, advertising, brand asset management, and brand management. A strong marketing professional with an executive program focused on digital media from Indian School of Business and leadership program from the IIM Ahmedabad. Welcome, Gitanjali. And last, we have Sudarshan R, Head of Mid Marketing and Marketing Operations, International Markets at Dell. I've already introduced him to you. You all know him very well. He gave some really great insights today. So welcome everyone to today's panel. We have a mix today of tech people who have work in tech, and we have a marketing person. So obviously, the idea is to look at how the two can go hand in hand moving forward in the new normal. So my first question comes to Gitanjali. With markets kind of opening up, are we now seeing a strong emergence of the hybrid consumer? One who can kind of either visit a physical or a digital infrastructure for various services. What are some of the key challenges of managing such consumers?
Thanks, Anil, and would like to really thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this really able panel. Also, a great audience who are here as participants. So I represent one of the very popular mall in New Delhi, as well as in India, if I can say so. It's called Select City Walk. We have close to about, just to give a figure, we have close to about 35,000 people who visit the mall every day. And the figure goes up a little exponential higher during weekends. So, of course, this past 2 years have been a huge challenge for us, especially from a marketing perspective, because we've seen in both the years of 2020 and 2021, for the period of about 2 months, an absolute physical lockdown in the mall, with retailers not opening their shops, only deliveries happening. So just to answer the question that you asked, Anil, last year after the first lockdown, when we came back and we reopened the mall on the 8th of June, there was a lot of skepticism. There was also a lot of, if I can say, concern in our teams when we reopened, though we did take out many advertising campaigns based on safety and security, but we felt that the consumer was, of course, greatly driven by inhibition. Also, we had seen that during the period of the lockdown, there had been an increase in terms of the digital consumption. So whether it was e-commerce, whether it was services, so the consumers had sort of learned. So my own mother, who was only a Facebook user, after the lockdown, we saw she was very okay with the idea of shopping online on Amazon. And thereafter, we saw that within the mall, there was also a drop where footfall was concerned. However, I think that situation led us to adapt technology very quickly in our ecosystem. Of course, we've always been a technology savvy company, but in terms of providing services to our consumers. So literally within a period of 1 week, we had like a sort of a call center set up within the mall, which would take in calls and requests of customer who wanted to order online from the stores without any physical intervention. And it also required us to have a very robust delivery service to the customer, which was also digitally equipped. And thereafter, as the demand kept on for these services, we also had to introduce a personal styling or a personal shopper program. So the point that I was trying to make is that over the period of the first lockdown or the first COVID phase of last year, what we have seen is that there have been three situations that have emerged. One, that all our consumer touch points, which are so critical from a marketing perspective, have now become digital touch points. So if I need to know whether something makes you happy, it's not about your smile because I can't see it because you have a mask, but it is about your like comments. It's about the way you are sharing. So that's how digital we have become. The second point is that today marketing needs to be innovative in everything. And I think for that, again, there is a huge dependence as marketers that we have on innovation. And the third is about speed. Today, the customer knows everything. It's not even a click, it's just a touch. And the customer knows that he can get everything delivered. So as a brick and mortar institution, we have to be very, very particular about how quickly we can receive feedback, act upon it. So three things of the hybrid customer that I would like to know, I would like to share, where digital collaboration with marketing is very important. One, in terms of assessment of touch points. Second, in terms of ensuring that there is innovation. And third, in terms of really doing up things with speed. So that's what I would like to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Gitanjali. I think really great insight from you and how Select City Work actually, picked up again after having that, trouble time, and how to, you use digital correlation and, all those technologies. It's great to hear, you are using all those technology word despite being a marketing person. So it's, it's nice to see that over this period of time, you've actually imbibed a lot of, technologies that you're actually putting to use for the company. Mukesh, maybe you want to share your views around, if you want to add something to what Gitanjali also said. And also, there are, Gitanjali mentioned a couple of technologies, touch point and all that, but there are so many technologies now out there. And you, of course, being an online player, would be really, in the, situation to talk about what are some of the, which ones are really, really critical for providing solutions to transform customer experience in a digital world. For instance, we talk about AI, we hear blockchain, we hear hybrid cloud, maybe we hear endpoint devices for solutions, work from anywhere. What are some of the, ones that are really, really critical for customer experience?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Anil, and thanks, Gitanjali, for sharing the insights. Well, if you see, there are a lot of technologies, and the technology has a specific use case if you really want to implement a technology across your workplace. For example, the endpoint security you mentioned, endpoint security is for securing the devices, right? It's to ensure like your data is protected. Whereas a blockchain is something where you want a transparent ledger of a contract, right? The other thing could be the AI, ML, and the data we talked about. And Gitanjali mentioned a point where like you now need to know a lot of data. You have a data digitally, like since the digital penetration has increased, you have a lot of data. And since you have a data now, you need to make sure like you make a sense out of this data. And in order to make a sense out of this data, since it can be a unstructured data also, not structured all the time. So you need to deploy artificial intelligence or machine learning models in order to make the sense out of this data. And now with data, there are other problems, like data comes with a cost. It's a lot of storage you would need to store that data, a lot of expansion of infrastructure you would need. You would need a lot of compute in order to run some machine learning algorithm to get sense out of that data. Similarly, the security has been always a very challenging for us. Now, for everyone, security has become the P0, and it's become so critical for us. Like whatever we do, like now workplaces are hybrid workplaces have their own challenges along with their own benefits. Like you have your bring like people can bring their own devices, and then you need to ensure like you have those BYOD policies. People when you design your infrastructure, you used to have a periphery or a perimeter security when like 3 years back when you had to design your systems. But now since post COVID, you have to think like there is no periphery. If you see, like the periphery is now it's a kind of a graph. Now you have to secure all the endpoints you have, every experience, every exposure you have to protect that. So in order to protect that, so you need a lot of different, not only the design or not only the data security, you would need the endpoint security, would need the device security, you would Apart from that, you would need the smart algorithms, like the machine learning. You would need to identify if any patterns you can early adopt. You can see any risk. You can do any anomaly detection for that. And it's a like enhanced role and responsibility for every individual, like thinking security at a core, and thinking digital adoption also at a core, because digital adoption for a lot of people, it's a kind of a new experience, right? For technology first companies or for technology background people, it was there, but for a lot of people it has become a new experience, like what Gitanjali mentioned about his mother and doing shopping online, Amazon. So there are, when you have those kind of a digital exposure, then you need to have, make sure like the digital exposure comes with a digital security also.
Thanks, Mukesh. I think great points. I mean, you talked about role of again data, and in fact, data integration and tools really came up as one of the priorities for CIOs also. So good that you really touched upon that topic. And of course, security becomes extremely important in such a scenario. So good insights on that. Sudhi, maybe if you'd like to add something to what Mukesh and Gitanjali have added, you could do that. But another point is for you is that the IT infrastructure complexity must have now increased in this digital world. For instance, now that we have a hybrid work culture that is becoming popular, workforce needs reliable technology to be able to work from anywhere. Endpoints, for instance, need to be reliable. They need to be, and this is what Mukesh was also talking about in terms of security endpoints to be reliable, secure, high performing. What challenges do you really see here, and the possible solutions to overcome this challenge?
So yeah, thank you, Anand. Great question. I think it's it's fair to say that the complexity has gone up, but more than just complexity, I think the priorities of what an IT organization is now dealing with is now multifoldly different to what it was earlier, right? And the dynamics of things changing is sort of impacting it pretty fast, right? And therefore, you don't have time to really make decisions over a period of, you really need to make those decisions now and today. So in what we see, right, basically is first of all, right, the employee experience has to be a subset of the company's overall digital strategy, right? You cannot decouple the two. You cannot see them in isolation. And the moment you see them in isolation, you're bound to fail in one of them, right? So you got to have a larger digital strategy of the company, which sort of looks at all aspects of technology and how that fuels innovation and customer experience. And then the employee experience is a subset of, right? That's first, right? The second is more in terms of how well, and to what Mukesh said, the periphery of an organization now is infinite, right? And some of the policies that we see companies deploying to boost employee experience, which is, let's say, bring your own PC, for example, right? Adds to the complexity because you now no longer have the same level of manageability on those bring your own devices as you would have versus corporate issued devices, right? So the flexibility in the employee experience and what you provide has to be factored in as a part of your overall company IT strategy, right? And I think that's important, right? Which is why I said your employee experience strategy has to be a subset of the company's overall IT and digital strategy. And the last but not the least is the awareness, like I said on my presentation, right, on both the employer and the employee side around perceived threats at endpoint devices is very, very minimal, right? Employees don't understand it as well. I think, a lot of us, right, when we have free Wi-Fi network, we almost instantly access it, whether it's at the airports, whether it's at the coffee shops, right? Because that's the world we are in, right? We want to be connected. We want to be able to, navigate, and we want to be always online. And that has a significant risk to your IT, right? Overall, right? And the technology within. So how well do employees understand their behaviors and how that impacts, the overall threat and the risks of an organization? How well are the devices capable to be able to deal with those risks, right? On a day-to-day basis? How well do the IT team in the company understand, right? To what Mukesh said, that the periphery is infinite, and therefore we've got to be even more. We've got to have data strategy, security strategy as an embedded part of our IT strategy, rather than that being like a long-term plan, right? So for me, it's really about awareness. It's about employee experience strategy being a subset of the digital strategy. And third is how well do you understand the intersection of all of these, right? So which is how far do you go on employee experience and how does that influence your overall strategy, right? I think these are the dimensions that I think, we see CXOs, CIOs, CTOs dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks, Sudhi. I think good points. Awareness is there. Digital strategy you really require, and what should be the intersection of that? Very, very valid point. So that brings me to Prasad, the next question. Of course, Prasad, if you want to add to any of the points that anybody else made, you can do that. But another point here is that, now that we do have a hybrid work culture that is kind of settling in, where employees can kind of work from anywhere and customers can access information from anywhere. What aspects of the business need to undergo digital transformation in this current scenario?
First of all, thank you for inviting me for this event. The pandemic situation has changed the overall perspective of looking at employees and the customers. Now, every employee is also a customer because you need to provide the same level of expectation what a customer is supposed to get. Your applications also has to render similarly as the customer, because now there is no limitation of whether the employee is working from a particular location or not. The 8-hour shift period is over. The employee can access the informations whether in office or out of office or wherever he is. The application follows the employee now. So, and application access needs to be seamless across, whether it is from a user device, whether he's accessing from a tablet, whether he's accessing from a office device, or whether he's accessing from his own computer or any network. The experience and the kind of output that he gives is, has to be on a very same scale. So the expectation has also gone up. The management also feels, so you have today to get a budget for rendering a requirement is very easy because you need to provision those to get your output. Earlier, you need to convince the management to get sanctioned on implementing technologies. Now that is given. You need to see to it that the customers and the employees work at the same pace. That is very important. And yes, comes with those technology backing up with what you call underlying factors of security. Anywhere you go, you need to have access to those informations. You need to have a standard policy and a secure and what you call a system where you can, if in terms of any eventuality, the data which is there, which is very high value data, you need to restore those data also and with minimal efforts. So that is what the management is also today looking at. You cannot afford to lose any information. You cannot bypass any security. At the same time, you need to have seamless access and the user experience to everyone.
Thanks, Prasad. I think good point. Security becomes critical in here also, data security and data accessibility, and employees also become customers. So that experience matters. And I'm glad that, you mentioned that the management is now open to kind of, adopting technology and ensuring that the experience is seamless and all. So thanks a lot. Good point from that. Mukesh, I have a question for you, and I think this also kind of is a follow-on from what Ankit also mentioned, and you can really talk about it now. I believe Paisa Bazaar recently launched the Paisa Bazaar stack, and you were very much instrumental in it. And I think that really, enables customers to get unsecured loans completely digitally. So tell us about its impact on your customers. Maybe tell us about the stack itself, and more importantly, did the team that really built the stack also design it remotely? And if then if that was the case, then what were the challenges related to endpoints, and what really did you do about it?
Sure. Thanks for this. Look, the Paisa Bazaar digital stack is when pandemic happened. Look, pre-pandemic, if you see the way overall industry, especially the lending industry, since a lender is lending the money, so a lot of KYC or a lot of physical meet between a customer and a lender used to happen, and that is because of the norms were there. And when pandemic happened, it was like the physical movement was almost restricted for everyone. And at that point in time, we decided like we could see, look, we wanted to do this digital transformation. We wanted to have a seamless end-to-end digital paperless processes since our incubation. But as an industry, we were not moving into the right direction at the right speed. And hence, we were almost geared up. But when this pandemic happened, it gave us a chance to really use what we were building and to join it and to create a stack which we can offer to the lender, to the customer, and to us. Now, what's a digital stack is? It's basically a stack. It's a set of services which covers for end-to-end lending processes. Now, there are, and if you go with a lender, now there are different kind of a technical implementation or maturity of a given lender, and hence, or a bank or a lender. So hence, we wanted to keep it at a stack so that we can configure, we can plug those services wherever we require if we want to make an end-to-end digital journey. For that matter, the first step is the digital customer acquisition. The second step is a policy engine where we try to match the best product for the given best customer. The third step would be the income criteria. The fourth step would be the KYC. Now, earlier the KYC used to happen at physical meet. Even the income doc used to be collected like physically. But now what we are trying to do is, with this digital stack, we are using machine learning and also all the digital services through which we can do a video KYC, we can collect the document digitally, we can parse, we can scan the document, we can also validate a document if required, right? Like if we have asked a customer to upload an income document, then we can validate behind the scene whether it's an income document or any other document. And then you can extract those information. So the idea was that only, and then digital agreements, contract, has to be in place, and you can do it by doing OTPs, capturing the IPs, and making sure you are creating the end-to-end seamless digital experience. So that was the digital stack. Now, how we built it, of course, when there was a lockdown, the entire team, which was WFH, and for the rest of people, it was a challenge for us also. Though we are a digital savvy company and we are a tech company by our DNA. So we had a lot of things in place. We had to just scale it up, the endpoint security kind of things. We had to just scale it up. There was a team collaboration tool already was there. And as I said, we were already in a state where we wanted to drive this from last 3-4 years, or as I said, since our incubation, but we were not getting the chance. When this pandemic happened, it was the right time for us to assemble everything, create a digital stack, empower the lender, empower the customer using the stack, and offer the best consumer product or a lending product to our customer. So now in terms of impact, like if you see, our digital stack is being used almost like for majority of our application, which is happening nowadays, right? Be it is all the application, personal loan or a credit card, we are using the digital stack behind the scene, and it has the I would say the foundational stack which has allowed us to come back so fast after the pandemic.
So basically, the entire thing is end-to-end digital now. There's no need for anybody to visit an office and submit their documents. Everything is completely digital.
Yes. Look, it depends on the partner, the level of maturity or the level of technical maturity a partner has. If there is a digital partner who have all the APIs and the integration ready, yes, we can make the entire experience end-to-end digital. But if there are partners who do not have this kind of a technology, sophisticated technology or integration readily available, then we try to empower them using our stack. And then we will try to make the experience as much digital as we can do, trying to remove the physical leg out of it.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess otherwise, if the party is aware, they have the necessary infrastructure, then end-to-end digital is very much a possibility, and it is being done and all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So Gitanjali, I think you've heard a lot of views around how technology is being used for so many things. What's the really importance of partnership between IT and marketing in this current normal? And what would be your expectations from IT or a CIO or a CTO to help really marketing teams understand their customers better, or enable faster decision making, or enhance outreach? What would be your expectations?
So, thanks, Anil. I think one of the things that we've seen across now both the COVID times and the new normal and the new hybrid that we're talking about today is that the customers today, especially the shoppers that come to the mall, so they want a lot of physical interactions, like in terms of people, because they've sort of missed it. But the point is that they want all transactions to be digital. So whether you are shopping, whether you're placing an order, whether it is any alteration, whether it is delivery, whether it is parking, whether it is slot booking, everything customers today want is they want it to be seamless, and they want it to be digital. They don't want to even talk to another human being for that. And I think keeping that in mind, a collaborative effort, or working as an alloy with the technology team, becomes very, very important. Like today, I never thought this when I began marketing. It was all about outdoor and newspapers and print advertising, and today we have a digital person as a part of the team, not just the social media, but like a technology person as a part of the team. So I think that this working together is very important in order to give those applications, in order to provide that kind of convenience to the customer. And I think especially important for people like us who are brick and mortar stores, where there is a looming threat, and e-commerce is equally a part of our life today. So to make this seamless, I think technology plays an extremely, extremely important role.
Yeah, thanks, Gitanjali. Good point that you referred to, especially about, traditional marketing now, has completely changed. It's not just about the traditional marketing effort of outdoor marketing and, advertising and all that, but it's more about digital marketing. And
I mean, it's amazing that on a panel, I have 3 co-panelists who are all technology mavericks, as against to where we're talking about marketing. So that's how the changing times are.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Thanks for that. Sudhi, so after, looking at all these views and all that, what changes do you think are going to be permanent moving forward? And how do you think it's really going to transform, the industry that, you're kind of working with, or you're kind of catering to?
I think few things, right? It's safe to say it's hard to predict where it's going to go, because obviously, we're all learning as we go along, and our customers are also, learning. But I think it's safe to say a few things will remain, right? The first is there'll be some sort of a hybrid work environment that will exist, right? Whether it'll be a permanent work from home on remote, or whether it's a combination of, I think someone mentioned on the discussion earlier that they'd want their employees to come into office 2 or 3 days a week. So some sort of a hybrid work environment will continue to exist. And that hybrid work environment will continue to be more agile. It'll keep changing, it'll keep evolving, but you will have some sort of hybrid work. That's one. The second is the customer journey will now become more digital led, right? It's almost going to be, while there'll be interoperability between digital and physical, but it'll still almost be digital led. Commerce will be largely digital and social. And there will be some level of omni-channel experience that we still have to plan for. And particularly to what Gitanjali said, how do you plan for a digital first customer behavior, and then sort of it could culminate into a physical store buy? How do you ensure that whole experience is seamless is going to be a challenge that most marketeers are going to face. And that's what customer behavior is going to drive us to think, right? So there'll be omni-channel, interoperability, but it will be digital led, right? And commerce is largely going to move to digital, right? Which I think will be a significant shift for most business models. The third is security will always be an issue, right? It'll be a challenge, right? Whether it's driven by lack of awareness, whether it's driven by sophisticated cyber threats, whether it's driven by technology trying to learn, right, and become better over time, there will always be a threat looming around, security, and organizations have to make that as an intrinsic part of their strategy, and almost forward think their strategy, right, and make it more foolproof, even though it might be investing more today, but it has to be, sort of ready for the future, right, and ready for that, possible one threat that might impact their business severely. And then finally, I think, we will all collectively learn, and figure out in terms of how to collaborate better, right? I think that's the other piece, right? Right now, there's this almost an inhibition to have a face-to-face or a physical conversation, right? How do we sort of become more collaborative? How do we become more metaphysical in terms of virtual presence, online collaboration, but becoming more more and more augmented, right, in terms of reality? I think that will evolve, right, and that will change the dynamics of how our employees work with each other, right, and the whole employee experience will also evolve. So these are, for me, 4 areas that I think will remain in some way or form, but it will always keep changing, right, in terms of what their expectations are.
Yeah, good. I think you're right. I mean, many of these things are likely to remain, but yeah, you never know the future, how things are really going to pan out moving forward, how things will go back. Will they go back exactly to normal, or are they going to be, permanently changed? But definitely, I think one thing is that digital customer journey is now become a reality. It's not just about, physical customer coming in and all that, but digitization of that becomes extremely critical, as you rightly said. Prasad, since we are reaching the end of the discussion, so last question comes to you, Prasad. And, you've heard kind of all the views from everyone in terms of changes and importance of marketing and IT. What changes do you think are necessary now in the technology stack and the technology architecture now moving forward for an organization to be successful?
First of all, how quickly you can provision the requirements, how quickly can you change or adapt to those changes are very important. And cloud, as of today, is not a buzzword. It's a requirement which has come. Also, we have seen technologies like for the AI ML piece, where everything was in-house. Now, there are companies which are also offering artificial intelligence as a service. So gone are those days where everything used to be physical or 100% virtual. Now it is cloud-ready applications. Or how quickly you can provision or adapt to those changes is what is the future.
Very valid point. I think being able to provision technology quickly is really what's going to determine the success. And cloud, of course, enables that to happen. But of course, internally also, how geared up is the IT infrastructure to cater to changing customer requirements as quickly as possible, I think.
And the main factor is the culture. The culture always supersedes all those underlying factors. So your culture and the complexity of those applications will determine what stage and what level you will be in the next stage.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Prasad, and thank you to all my co-panelists for such a wonderful and engaging discussion. I think it's been really wonderful to have insights from marketing as well as IT in terms of where things are really heading. It is now time for the Q&A. Although we are almost at the end of the webinar, so we are just going to maybe share 1 or 2 quick questions. So we'll just do that Q&A, and I will request the admin to kind of bring all the speakers back on, so that in case there is a question for any of them, they can answer the question. So I just see 1 or 2 main questions. One is that what our organizations are doing for BYOD devices security during this work from home and time. So who could really talk about that? I think BYOD security does become very, very critical. So anybody would like to answer that?
Well, I can take this up, Anil. Look, bring your own device. What it does, like as I said earlier, also, like you have a periphery security. You used to have a periphery security. Now, bring your own device will give you a borderless security. As a concept, like you do not have any boundaries or border to protect. So what you do protect? You protect your information. You protect the devices and the way you access the information, because information is the key. That we were talking about data, right? Data is something like there is an analogy. People say data is a new oil, and I have a new saying on top of it, like oil is very inflammable. So you have to make sure like you protect it well. And in order to protect it, you need to have a security at every place, right? Security at a device level, which people are using. Security as an access level. You need to have the vulnerability assessments. You need to have a cloud security. You need to have an endpoint security. You need to make sure like your team is now understanding the criticality of security. Because look, whatever you will do in terms of security, whatever you deploy in terms of firewalls and all, or restricted accesses, two-factor auth, multi-factor auth, everything will not be enough if one guy who doesn't understand security and do something silly which was not supposed to do. So everybody has to understand the criticality of it. There must be some sessions, there must be some coherence among the team, there must be, and it's no longer a responsibility of a one guy. It's no longer a responsibility of an IT or a technology team or a security team. It's a cumulative responsibility of everyone, right? Every single individual, every single employee in the company is responsible for that kind of security. You can make system tough, right? You can make system tough to break. That's the best you can do. But eventually, if you really want to make a foolproof secure system, it is not just by using the tool. It is just the security common sense which has to be there across the team.
There is a follow-on question on that, Mukesh. So I'm just going to ask that quickly also. Before I jump to the other question for the other panelists to respond. So the question is, will encrypting the BYOD devices also achieve the security compliance?
Well, look, encryption is a kind of a tool. As I said, like you have endpoints, like encryption is also a tool through which you can encrypt the data. But when you encrypt the data, you have a key. What if someone gets that key, right? Someone can still decrypt that. So that is what I'm saying. Security, whatever you do, there'll always be a bottlenecks. There'll always be a loopholes. Like now, there are times when we do, you have a key, then there are key rotation policies. You can rotate the key regularly. You can have a multi-factor keys in order to secure or encrypt the data. But yes, of course, this is how you make things tough for someone who's trying to steal data or someone who's trying to leverage the security loopholes. So you implement those firewalls, you implement those multi-factor auths, you create security layers, you create multiple encryption layers, and you make it more tough. But everything, look, encryption has its own cost. The security always comes with a cost. Encryption has its own entropy. It'll cost you more compute. It'll cost you more storage, because when you encrypt it, it takes a lot of time a computer to decide to do that algorithm behind the scene, and a simple piece of a data in encrypted fashion becomes a larger piece of a data. So just hypothetically telling you a 1 GB of a data, if you try to encrypt it, it might become like 10 or a 15 or a 20 GB data easily, right? And hence you need to judicially choose what to encrypt, what not to encrypt. If your cost allows you, if your company allows you to encrypt everything and you can bear those costs and those latencies in response to customer, you must encrypt everything else.
Thanks a lot, Mukesh. There are questions that are, again, people are just countering with a lot of other questions that are coming in. So it's becoming an interesting discussion, but I'll just pause right there, because there's a question directly for Sudhi, which is basically around how are you really providing an option in selection of components of a system or server and making the selection the best option for a customer?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things. I mean, we can take it offline as well, and we can have a detailed chat. Obviously, there is, at the point of configuration, you have options to, upgrade and downgrade depending on what your application is and what you're trying to deploy the server for. But even more important is there are various tools that we have that allows you to really assess and see what sort of a server architecture do you need for your application, right? So more than just components of a server, what's important to understand is what's the solution. What are you trying to solve, and what's the right, tool or system for you, right? So there are plenty of tools available. If you talk to one of the Dell sales guys, they'll actually show you, right, what's available. But yeah, for me, it's not just about the components, which is sort of pretty easy to do, right? And it's available on our website. but it's more about what are you using it for and how do we match the technology, the right technology for your use case.
Great. So thanks. I think I've got, we've had a really interactive session, and we are actually running, we have kind of ended our time, we've run out of time for this. So there are some specific questions which maybe, Mukesh, to you on the encryption bit, I can maybe, send them to you later on over email or something, and you could respond back on those. So with that, we come to the end of, today's session. I think it's been wonderful and it's been very engaging. You've all really given some great insights, and I think the audience have really attendees have found it useful, as I can see from the chat and all that. So, thank you so much. And on behalf of Dell Technologies and CMR, I'd like to thank all the participants who joined us today. And, I'm also happy to inform you that, today's webinar will be available on demand, and we'll share the link with you once it's made live. So with that, we'll call it the day. But before I do that, please share your feedback. There's a link posted in the chat window. Would really appreciate if you could, share your feedback by clicking that link and filling up the form. So that's all I have for you today. Signing off, and thanks to all for attending. Thank you to all the panelists for joining in on this interesting discussion and sharing your insights. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you again soon. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Sanil, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.